Hello and welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast. My name is Jess and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information that I want to cover with you. All right, let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. So if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Now, keep in mind that if you do have any technical issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on today, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you, so throughout today's EcoCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over a live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentations. Now, if we don't get to your question during the live webinar today, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us will be following up after we wrap. All right, next up, there's going to be lots of cool aha moments on the EcoCast today. And if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there on your audience console, and the hashtag for today's EcoCast will be automatically added to your post. All right, our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the handouts tab for some awesome resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection, solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. Now, if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes that we'll be giving away throughout today's EcoCast. I'm going to tell you a bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. First, you do need to be here live in attendance at the EcoCast in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all of you after we wrap. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, if you don't know what those full T's and C's are, that's fine. We've got the full thing for you. Just head on over to that handouts tab, click in, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find them waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we actually have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. So in today's EcoCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our live sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all questions asked after we wrap the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and you would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about your big win, and we'll get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the EcoCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going, so let's connect on social media. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and on LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content and resources right after we wrap the EcoCast today, be sure to subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and, hey, grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or a coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you'll find a link to do that right in your handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected at the end of the webinar. And both you and your coworker or friend could win a prize, and we hold those drawings every month. So be sure to refer a friend because, it could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for all the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your handouts tab, fill out a quick application, and the Actual Tech crew will then match you with some vendors that we think you should probably be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you get to choose to join in, like surveys, test runs, new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you'll learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker on your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you all about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find out everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, prevent, and recover. This site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. Go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books will work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and as I said, they are completely free. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in that handouts tab as well. All right, well, we have covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in. So let's get going.
Righty, hello and welcome, folks. It is time to dive in on today's topic, the cloud-powered enterprise, securing your cloud. Securing cloud environments is a critical aspect of modern enterprise operations. Whether you are a cloud-native enterprise or you have a hybrid configuration, virtually all of us are using some form of cloud storage supporting our teams, our clients, and our organizations. Luckily, today we have top experts from Akamai and Rubrik to discuss the latest strategies and technologies for cloud security, including identity and access management, data encryption, threat detection, and data security posture management. I'm sure you are all ready and pumped to get started, so we're going to go through a last few little bits of info and then get our speakers on out here with us. My name is Mackenzie Puddesy, and I am a moderator here at Actual Tech Media. My friends and fellow moderators Jess Steinbach, Scott Becker, and Keith Ward are here with us on live chat today. And I also have Jess here waiting in the wings to be Q&A or picking the brain of our keynote speaker, who I'm super excited to introduce in a second. If it is your first EcoCast with me, it is great to meet you. And I want to thank you for being here. And just to make sure you're all awake out there and alive, why don't you find the questions tab in your console? And let's start out by saying hi, hello, bonjour, hola, aloha, or whatever greeting you'd like to leave today, and give a big wave to the community that is out there with us. Alrighty, next thing I want to talk about are some prizes. Exciting stuff here. Not only do we have valuable information, but some awesome prizes that you are able to win on today's EcoCast. So up for grabs, we have three $300 Amazon gift cards that we'll be giving to 3 lucky winners today who are present and live with us here at the EcoCast. And as mentioned in the housekeeping chat this morning, you can find the full T's and C's linked in the handouts tab if you have any questions about that. And hey, with that last little thing, we are ready to rock. We've got our keynote speaker who is going to be joined, sorry, I said before Jess Steinbach, but by my fellow moderator, Keith Ward, who is a seasoned journalist in the tech sphere. So let me introduce you to the incredible Keith Ward and Dan Sullivan, cloud architect and cloud analyst. This dynamic duo is a joy to listen to, and I'm super excited to have you two setting the stage for today's discussion in a Q&A format. So with that, Keith, Dan, I am kicking things over to you. The floor is yours.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the EcoCast today. It's my honor to kick this off with a discussion about the best ways to secure your cloud operations. Now, this topic is of obvious interest to folks today, as it's harder than ever to keep the bad guys at bay. But it has to be done, and that's why we've brought in our resident cloud expert today, Dan Sullivan. Now, Dan is a cloud architect, a writer and speaker, and he knows about all things cloud, so we are delighted to have him here right now to introduce this topic. Dan, thank you so much for being here, and let's dive right in. What do you say?
Great.
So
that sounds good. Thanks, Keith.
Absolutely. Yeah, so what broad security concerns does the cloud bring with it?
Well, really, the first thing that jumps out is that as you move from, say, on-prem to the cloud, you are now working with what's known as a shared security model. And there are some well-defined, well-delineated responsibilities. For example, cloud providers manage the physical security of data centers and things like that. Clearly, that's an obvious thing. And then there are certain things that are obviously on the other end of the spectrum, where, for example, in my organization, I might be responsible for deciding who in my organization will get access to which data sets or which applications. There's kind of a gray area in between. It's that where it can be hard to know. So, for example, when it comes to networking security, there are certain things a cloud vendor will provide, but then there's also networking security that you need to be responsible for. And a second factor is as we move more to the cloud and move more toward, software as a service, identities themselves, so the way we log in and access cloud services, is becoming a prime target for attacks. So we need to think differently about how we manage identities as well, and be concerned about things like two-factor authentication and how are we going to scale that along with our services that we implement in the cloud.
Okay, right. So along those same lines, this is more almost an SMB-ish type of question, but certainly enterprises need to know also. When it comes to keeping yourself, your organization, your data, all of that secure in the cloud, is automation absolutely necessary these days, or are there ways to get by without it?
I couldn't imagine. Literally, I mean, there's three. No, I can't think of a way to get by without automation. And the problem is we're dealing with cost and speed and consistency are the three issues we need to think about. We just can't scale. We can't have all the people on staff that we need to be able to manually implement all of the policies that we need to do, especially in cloud environments, where one of the reasons we go to the cloud is because it gives us access to additional resources that we can scale up when we need it and scale down when we don't. So if we want the cost benefit of the cloud, we need to be able to automate how we apply security policies across a whole range of controls. So we need it from a cost perspective, from a speed perspective, we have to be able to move at machine speeds. If we're under a DDoS attack, you don't want to be waiting for somebody like me to type in commands into a Linux command line. That needs to be automated. And then finally, consistency. We all make mistakes. What we implement in our policies and our automation can be fairly complex. And even if we get it right 99% of the time, 1% of the time, we might make a mistake. We can't really risk that. With automation, we can review code, we can check in code, we can version control code, and we can know it will be consistently applied. So I'd say those are the three reasons you really want to start thinking about automation as soon as possible in your cloud journey.
Now, all that is true, but is it also worth mentioning, Dan, at this point, that automation can't be the last line of defense? That still has got to be the people involved making these decisions.
Oh, absolutely right. This is just one of the controls in our bag of controls that we have. And the automation is really implementing policies and procedures and mechanisms that someone on the business side is defining, whether it's with regards to who has access to data, what are compliance requirements. We just want to make sure that we're able to implement and enforce whatever policies that our organization wants us to have in place.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next up, I still believe, and want to see if you agree with me or not, that there still is confusion about the security responsibilities in the cloud for the company that has information in the cloud versus the cloud platform provider, whether that's Amazon or Microsoft or Google. Is it, number one, is it your sense that there is still confusion? And number two, how would you delineate or define those responsibilities? So for the client's responsibility versus the platform provider's responsibility.
Yeah, there is confusion because it's hard to draw a line of demarcation between cloud vendor and cloud customer and who's responsible for what. Now, and networking is the perfect example here where we both have responsibilities. So for example, I might need to set up a virtual private cloud. I'm going to need to set up my own firewall rules for how I want traffic to move across my own subnets. That's my responsibility. It's the cloud vendor's responsibility to make sure like the firewall rules that I implement, they're actually enforced. There are other areas where it becomes a grayer area. Let's say I have a microservices architecture. I'm exposing a lot of my services as APIs. Well, the cloud vendor is going to be responsible for securing access to the network, enforcing the firewall rules. But when it comes to maybe web application firewalls, well, the cloud vendor doesn't know what my web application is supposed to do. It's my responsibility to configure, say, a web application firewall. Well, that's fairly complex. And so this is where you start getting into like, oh, do I need a security partner to help me implement, especially in this kind of gray area where it's not very clear, because configuring a web application firewall is not trivial. And it's a domain of expertise that many of us who, if you work in healthcare or finance or industry, manufacturing, that's not your bailiwick. And so it helps to have somebody that can help you. You don't want to learn the hard way how to configure a web application firewall. And that's where I think there's still a little bit of a gap sometimes. And so it helps to have somebody that's been down that road and can bring best practices to this, what is essentially a new domain, a new security domain for a lot of people.
And again, it's important, I think, to emphasize here that your data in the cloud is your responsibility. It is to make sure it's secure. And assuming that the cloud provider is going to secure everything that's there is just wrong thinking and will get you in a load of trouble.
Oh gosh,
ultimately,
yes.
you need to know what your responsibilities are, and that it's, that you have to do some work here too. So thank you so much for that. Now let's move into something else you referenced toward the end of that answer, and that is about a security partner, in whatever form that partner would take. Now, a lot of companies, as they're starting to think about bringing on a security partner for their cloud endeavors, Dan, are not sure what exactly they should be looking for in that security partner. So if you're talking to a company like this, what do you tell them as some of the most important things they want to look for in that cloud security partner?
Okay, well, you want somebody that's familiar with cloud infrastructure and how virtual machines and containers and Kubernetes clusters work. What are the different security controls that we have across these different layers in our infrastructure stack? And just how we organize resources in clouds, how we set up virtual private clouds. So we want to make sure we have a partner that understands those concepts. We want to make sure we have a partner who understands automation. Infrastructure as code is really popular now. So whereas we used to buy physical servers and put them in a rack, now we spin them up and we use code to do that. So we want to make sure we have security partners who can help us construct code, infrastructure as code that's going to work, is secure. We also want security partners who understand the risks, the particular risks that are especially prevalent in the cloud. Like I mentioned earlier about identity is like the new target, where it used to be trying to break through a perimeter that you might have in your on-premise data center. Now, so much access is available to an attacker who can compromise an identity, say log into my account, this person will have all the privileges and access that I have. So we need to understand tools like two-factor authentication, which you may not have used when you're, say, in an on-prem environment, but is absolutely essential. So do you have a security partner who can think all the way from, say, two-factor authentication, protecting identities, all the way through to understanding low-level networking details and how those networking details are implemented in cloud and what the cloud infrastructure looks like? It's really a spectrum. And as you pointed out, we as the cloud consumers, cloud customers have absolute responsibility for protecting our data, but there's a lot of technical implementation details and tools that we need that may not necessarily be in place in any one particular cloud vendor. And this is especially the case if you might be working with a couple of cloud vendors. You want to make sure you have a partner that understands the specifics of multiple clouds.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Dan, we've talked about a lot in a little bit of time, and I think that you've given us all so much to think about through this that is going to be a great launching pad for the rest of the event today. So I want to thank you so much for your time and insights.
Well, thanks, Keith. I really enjoyed talking with you. This is a great topic.
Yeah, it is. It's been an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to talk to you again about cloud security. And with that, folks, we are now going to move along and get to the rest of the EcoCast. Have a great event.
Awesome, Keith. We absolutely will have a great event. Keith, Dan, what a pleasure. I loved having you kind of pitch what to look for when you're approaching your security partners, and also how we may need to use different tools in different clouds and how that kind of cloud architecture all comes together. As for you all there in the audience, hopefully you enjoyed that. I do have a poll question up for you. So if you haven't answered that, take a quick peek. Essentially, we're just wondering what your time frame is for adding new or updating your existing IT solutions at your company. Are you looking to do this kind of right away, next 6 months here? Do you have a year timeline, a couple year timeline? Or perhaps you're not sure. You're here sussing it out, getting a lay of the land, and trying to get a better understanding of what tools are out there to help you kind of empower your next steps as an organization. So do take a second to answer that poll there. And with that, I'm super excited to get our first speaker out here today. On today's EcoCast, we've got two fantastic teams presenting. It is going to fly by, but it will be jam-packed with information, as always, so let's dive in. The Akamai team is here to get this EcoCast kicked off, and I am thrilled to introduce you to Joseph Glover, who is the Director of Field Compute at Akamai. While Joseph presents, I encourage you to ask some thoughtful and insightful questions that I'll be posing during the Q&A. Not only do we get to pick his brain for invaluable information, but I want to remind you that there's also a $50 Best Question gift card up for grabs from each session today. So it could literally pay to be curious. Music to my ears. And with that, Joseph, why don't you take it away? The stage is yours.
Sounds good. Thank you, and thank everyone for joining the call. It was great to actually hear the response from Dan Sullivan about cloud security, and I'm going to spend some time talking about that. So just to reiterate, my name is Joseph Glover. I am the Director of Cloud Field Technology, or the Field CTO, as it relates to Akamai Compute Services. And today we're going to spend some time exploring Akamai Connected Cloud. Right, that's working. Akamai Connected Cloud, and specifically the transformating cloud computing things we're putting in place as it relates to security and the integration of security capabilities for our customer. We're going to dive into robust security in more details, and also we're going to discuss opportunity of leveraging Akamai security to do distributed cloud deployment. However, though, before I go any further, I think it's best I step back and talk a bit about who we are as Akamai, because in the field, what I get to see is I get questions as I don't really know who Akamai is. So I want to spend some time to talk about what we do. Now, if you've ever booked a vacation rental, or manage financial online, or manage your finances online, or access, essential business application, you've probably used or benefit from Akamai services. Let me give you an example. See, Airbnb relies on Akamai to deliver fast, reliable experience across both web and mobile platform, and that be whether you are booking a tree house in Japan or you are booking a castle in Ireland. Akamai ensures that Airbnb platform performs seamlessly, providing a superior customer experience no matter where in the world you are. Another example I wanted to put out there is IBM also uses Akamai for fast and reliable experience for its customer across the globe. Whether it be leveraging Akamai caching or optimizing content delivery, IBM ensures that, Akamai ensures that IBM users have a flawless experience, again, regardless where you are. Now, I bring this all out to point out that we have been in the business for over 25 years. We started in the late 90s with our content delivery network designed specifically to solve the worldwide wait problem by making the internet faster and more reliable. Now, recognizing that robust security is essential for reliable content delivery, we expanded into security in the early 2000s. And a few years ago, we made another significant loop into the edge and cloud computing side of the house by acquiring Linode, a veteran cloud computing company with 19 years of experience in the space of cloud computing at the time of acquisition, and that was 2 years ago. And so with that said, that's acquisition that allow us to expand and enhance our cloud computing offering, backing all of that with our massively pervasive global network that we've already built over 25 years. Now, putting all of these three together is what you see as our Akamai Connected Cloud, which is our massively distributed edge and cloud computing platform that allows you to do cloud computing, security, and content delivery. Now, at this point, I usually ask myself a question. Why did we get into the cloud computing business? And the simple answer to that is we got into the cloud computing business because our customers asked for it. What we heard repeatedly from our customer was, yeah, while our content delivery is great, they needed more than just delivery. They needed compute processing capacity closer to their end user to address latency, data sovereignty concerns, and ultimately provide a better overall customer experience. And that's why we did what we did. Now, we're in the cloud business, but don't take again my word for hook, line, and sinker. Last year, Forrester did a study as it relates to the state of cloud adoption. And the study itself was called the Great Cloud Reset. And here's what they found. Multi-cloud, first of all, is here to stay. And in the world of multi-cloud, maturity involves selecting the right cloud for the right workload. So even though we heard from our customers, and they are users of public cloud and private cloud, what we saw and what Forrester is bringing to us is that customers are increasingly focusing on localization and latency as they transition to cloud native architecture, moving from core to edge. Another reason we went into this business. And the challenges that they are finding today is balancing the need and the cost and complexity of managing multiple cloud, which then makes security a very essential thing when you're thinking about multiple cloud or when you're thinking about distributed cloud, which is where I'm heading to with this. What we believe is with the maturity of multi-cloud, distributed cloud, and edge native application is the future of cloud computing. And I know I've dropped some names here with distributed cloud and edge native. So let me step back and explain what those two things are. Now, distributed cloud in itself, it's an evolution of the centralized cloud architecture that you would see today, which is distributing cloud services and putting them in locations where data is being produced, or in another way to say that, putting them in locations where your users are, putting them near to your users. And what does that do? It reduces latency, and it does also promote security by promoting data sovereignty. That way, data is being processed and managed locally to where it's being produced. Now, that gives way to edge native application, which is an evolution of cloud native application, which means it builds upon the fundamental of cloud native architecture, but specifically designed to take advantage of the unique characteristics of edge environment. So that will be reduced latency, real-time processing, localized decision making. And that's where the future is going. And that's why we've built this distributed cloud architecture to help customers meet their need, whether it be VM or containers or even real-time AI-powered application. Customers have control of their data, minimize costs, streamline operation while eliminating cloud logging and enhancing security, because our platform is open. And so we don't force customers to actually use or stay on the platform. Stay on the platform. So if you need to hop on and leave, that's fine. But the key there is if you're distributed, chances are you're using more than one cloud. So multi-cloud is promoted on our platform, and we don't really promote a large volume of proprietary software to keep customers logging. So keep that in mind. Now, speaking of security, Dan really drilled into the answers of security when it comes to the securing your cloud. And one of the things he mentioned was the shared security model, which I love. He said that. I was like, great. Anyone in the cloud industry knows that this is a thing. It's a shared security model. Security is all our responsibility as it relates to our application and our user experience at the end of that application. We adhere to a shared security model as well. We have a comprehensive data protection, access management, application protection, which I will go into details here in a little bit. And that's our job, to make sure that the cloud that you are deploying your application to is secured. Now, we rely on the customer to secure their application when it gets into the cloud. And we provide services, best practices, and guidelines to help customer get there. Like Dan said, that is a little milky sometimes for customers. And my best advice, being in the industry for over 17 years, spent 9 years with an hyperscaler, my best advice to you is be open to conversation, talk to us, talk to your cloud providers, and understand where your security covers, or the scope of your security, and where that separates from your cloud provider. One of the things that I have learned in my 17 years of experience in this industry is security is a multifaceted. I think this is the second time I'm bringing that up. And there are different measures that both a cloud provider and a customer needs to have in place. You can call that table stakes. We all have to do this. And I term that the golden pattern of security. It starts with zero trust architecture. It ends with zero trust architecture. That is just fundamental. And by zero trust architecture, it's not a specific, hey, this is the tool that you use for zero trust, or the diagram for zero trust, but it's a mentality. Let me explain what that is. When it comes to zero trust, it operates in the principle that never trust anything, always verified. So zero trust assumes that threat comes from anywhere, both inside and outside your network or organization. So our approach, cloud provider and customer of the cloud, is to always continuously verify every user, every device attempting to access any infrastructure or resources in your cloud environment. You're monitoring it, you are enforcing strict access control, and you are also resolving any threat at every level. That's table stakes, that's across the board. And then you start from identity and access management. Dan also mentioned this. And then on top of that, you build a unified security policy across the board, especially when you're dealing with multi-cloud, and in this case, distributed cloud deployment. You need to have a consistent, and that was another word Dan used, a consistent security policy across the board. On top of that, you build on top encryption. Everything should be encrypted as best case, in traffic, in flight, and at rest. Encrypt your data. And then adhere to industrial standard when it comes to frameworks or compliance frameworks as it relates to your industry. So that whether that be HIPAA compliance in the medical industry or FedRAMP in federal government, you make sure you adhere to that. And then finally, you make sure you proactively. Dan talks about automation, and I love that he brought that out. So you proactively have an automated tool that is scanning for vulnerability, checking your logs, making sure that your environment is well secured. So my point here is all of us have to do that. Cloud provider and users, we all have to do this. All right. Now, what do we actually do as a cloud provider when it comes to security? So based on what I just talked about in those measures, what do we actually do for you? So two things. We secure the cloud for you, and I'll go into some of the things we do. And then we give you tools to help you secure your cloud, your application in our cloud. And in a multi-cloud environment, so across other cloud providers. So keep those two things in mind. So some of the things that we specifically do is we have selective authentication and authorization as relate to all our employees. So you use list privilege methodology, give access to who, what, and when only as each case is approved. So selective authorization and authentication for every employees. We have signatures and abnormally based IDS and IPS, so intrusion detection, intrusion protection, are in place, and sensors in strategic points throughout our network. We regularly review log files and look for signs for intrusion. We have red team style penetration tests, which is constantly looking for looking for threats in our exposed systems, so systems that have access to the internet, and in our entire internal system as well. And at the same time, we also go ahead and we have a comprehensive vulnerability management system for all our hosts, and we rely on the customer to actually do that for themselves, and we provide too. And we do all of this find, fix, and repeat. Find, fix, and repeat automatically to keep our cloud secure. Now, I know there are questions coming up. I will try and take a look at them here in a sec, but I don't want you to take my word. Second time I'm saying this for Wook, Learn, and Sinker. We have also gone out and gotten numerous certification and attestation to demonstrate our commitment to security and compliance. So this is showing that we adhere to the highest standards in the industry and showing that customers can trust us with most of their sensitive data. And you also help customers when you're building an application, for example, in the medical industry, and you want to see if you meet the standard. Well, we already have HIPAA compliance, so we've helped you halfway there. Now you just need to make sure your applications that sits on top of our cloud also meet the regulatory standards for your environment or for your industry. So those are available. These are some of them I've put up here. Feel free to go to our legal and compliance page to have a more robust range of some of the certification and attestation that we actually have in place. Now, finally, for the technology side of things, I wanted to make sure I get to this slide as quickly as possible so we can spend time here. I can also take time to address your questions. How do you then actually secure an application in a distributed cloud environment? Which, yes, can be all Akamai Compute, and it can be Akamai Compute and other public and private cloud. And that's why I put this graph here or this chart out here. And the first thing I want to remind you is it's a multifaceted approach. I divided it into three different layers. So you have the application layer, infrastructure layer, and the user layer. But there are other layers that you can throw in there. For example, you can do client or brand layer, which we do have services that can help from my security side. But for the sake of this conversation, I'll limit it to this. The first thing you need to think about is on the green side column, where you have OAuth 2, VPC, and Cloud Firewall. Those comes default with the cloud computing platform. Remember, I showed you a graph in the beginning of three different businesses. They're under the Akamai Connected Cloud umbrella. This comes default with the cloud platform itself. And then you can layer the security side, which also integrates on top of the cloud platform to actually give you a robust security. So what do you get with OAuth 2? Well, that is majorly for your to help you manage authorization and access to resources in your cloud environment. What you can do with that is you can integrate that with federation like AD Federation, for example, and you can have single sign-on integrated into your environment, which brings in that automation and policies on top of that to make sure the three A's, authorization, authentication, and access control is in place for who has access to your environment. There's virtual private cloud, which we provide. which also helps with your layer 2 segregation. And then we also provide cloud firewall, which you can put that on top of your actual Linode instances, which is your layer 3 firewall to protect against authorized access and attacks from network level. And you can help you with filtering traffic. Now, on top of that, one of the things I love that Dan mentioned was a web application firewall. Okay, WAF. Now, on top of that, you can layer on our app and API protector, which gives you that web application firewall at the application level to help you stop things like denial of service attacks or DDoS attack, SQL injection, and other vulnerability. Also, this is an API protection. So whatever API that you are making public can also be protected with API protector as well. And one thing I forgot to say, if you look at the backdrop of this chat or slide, you actually see that you have the same calendar type application running on multiple clouds. Okay, just to give you that distribution. Okay, you can have this web application firewall or API protector and app protector across all your cloud environments. So you have that unified policy, making sure that if there's a DDoS attack coming in, or if there's a SQL injection attack coming in, you can protect it across your application. Two more things I want to mention on this slide. I'm going to try to go through everything. It's things like bot manager to help you protect you against bot attack and authorized account access. And then lastly is network segmentation, or in our case, it's Gadico segmentation. One of the things Dan mentioned also was how you can, who is responsible for the network, who actually protect the network. Yes, it is a shared responsibility model, and we do our part in the back end to protect the network. But here is a tool as well that you can use to actually create micro segmentation back to that zero trust security that I talked about earlier on your infrastructure, to ensure that only authorized users and devices can access specific network segments of your application or your entire cloud environment sitting on a cloud platform. Could be ours, it could be a different cloud platform. Gadico goes across because it's software based, and you can have both agent and agentless deployment of that. Anyway, and then finally, multi-factor authentication. That way, there are multiple layers of verification before anyone or any systems can have access into your environment. So those are some of the measures that you can use today to actually go secure your cloud environment and continue to have a robust customer experience for your customers, because now not only are you blocking and preventing intrusion, you are and detecting intrusion, but you have a better customer experience because the data itself from your customer is being processed close to where your customer is providing the data or producing the data. You reduce their latency and have an overall better customer experience. All right, so what I have next here is who has used this, and I wanted to give you an example of a customer in Europe, which is actually in cybersecurity, and they're a SaaS company, and they've leveraged Akamai Linode Object Storage, which is S3 compatible, for their security operations center platform. Now, the customer itself needed a reliable, high-performance storage to handle large volume of data at a competitive price point. And what we did not only met their need, but also supported their global growth ambition by providing flexible, low latency storage. And with our common shared DNA, this was a great customer to work with. And it was, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about user experience. So it was a good user experience for their end user moving or utilizing our object storage. So that's really the nuts and bolts of what I had prepared. The next leg is really going to tell you if you need to know or learn more about Akamai as a whole, or an Akamai Compute, Akamai Connected Cloud. You can feel free to visit the link provided in the presentation, and we'll be happy to follow up and answer your questions. So I'm going to pause for a second and see if the moderator has specific questions for me, and we'll go from there.
All right, excellent. Joseph, thank you so much. We've got a lot of questions actually that have come in. Definitely seems like you've excited the audience out there. So let's try to get through as many as possible. I'm going to leave up this slide you've got with the link there for a little bit, and then I'm going to flip over to a poll about halfway through. So if you guys are curious to learn more, take the chance now in the next minute or so to click on what's up there on the slide. So okay, Joseph, let's hit it. So first question here is, what are the unique advantages of Akamai's massively distributed edge and cloud platform for an organization?
Oh man, that's a that's a great question.
It's a broad question, a good question.
Yes, and it's loaded. I mean, I'm just going to hit on the highlights, and then I will probably zero in on one or two. So here's the thing. You said, what are the advantages of our massively distributed edge and cloud platform for an organization? Well, the key word there, first of all, is massively distributed. And one of the things I didn't go into is how massive is our platform. So going into data, we have over 4,100, so that's 4,100 hedge locations or POPs all around the world. So there's really hardly a major city or even some remote city that we don't have presence. So what that does is it gives us a visibility of what's going on globally as far as traffic control, where the hotspots are, where customers are asking for more content to be delivered, which means users of a specific content or style or industry, if you want to look at it, are beginning to use more of technology in general. And those are the customers that are asking us to put more compute. So we are now putting in compute infrastructures in those areas, and it definitely helps to reduce the latency and give a better user experience to customers in those remote areas. For example, Bogota, and I think that is in Colombia, we are putting resources in those areas, Santiago, to help with customers' experience, and that is what users want. They want quick, easy, fast, reliable access to web and app services. So that's one big key thing. And then our robust security at the edge to help protect those intrusion attacks at the edge, and it doesn't make it past the edge because we can find it and stop it there. Lastly, I'll call out one more thing. AI is big, and we've been using AI in the industry to help us to identify and mitigate security intrusion, security threats at every layer. So we might not be yelling about it, but this is what's happening in the back end, and this is where our customer can benefit from that, because then we are extending that to the edge, and we are helping customers be more protective and be more productive in their day-to-day activity. I hope that helped answer your question in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. And actually, I have another question here that is asking about how Akamai is using AI and machine learning. So do you want to expand on that a little bit, on like how you're doing that now and how you're potentially going to roll that out further as things evolve?
Okay, so one of the things I had mentioned is we're using that in our proactively detecting and proactively mitigating what is it called, intrusion detection. But really what that means is we are analyzing users' behavior and identifying anomalies at the surface, as those threats surface. And bad players or bad actors, they are also using AI today, and they are getting more savvy. So you are constantly identifying new threats and new morph of old threats, and we're using AI to help speed up, identify, and mitigate those things. So think about pattern recognition from cyber criminals and visitors. We are using AI to learn and recognize those and quickly put in mitigation measures like blocking suspicious IPs or initiating multi-factor authentication if he wasn't present at the customer, and alerting our security team to proactively go in and help with mitigation. For example, if we need to mobilize teams to actually address a specific threat. Now, the other question you asked was, how are we bringing this to the industry or to the users beside what we're doing inside in the backend to help with security? Yes, we have a cloud business today. It's distributed. And what you can do with that is, because you have infrastructure now available at the edge to help process data, you can also run large language models inference. So you can take your trained large language model, run it at the cloud, at the edge for real-time, reduced latency, AI inference for your application. We have also worked with AMD, NVIDIA, with their Ada Lace architecture CPUs. We are coming out, we've announced this, and we're already doing beta testing to actually have unique chips that will help in the media and entertainment industry for, image rendering, for video and audio processing. So those are already coming out. We announced that in NAB a couple of months ago. So we are doing these things in place to ensure that we have the infrastructure to enable customers, developers, enterprises to innovate in their specific industry, example, media and entertainment, and AI as a whole to run edge inference for their application. And it can be CPU based. So we have partnership with things like with a partner called Neuromagic, which can actually do specification at the software level to allow you to run inference, AI inference using CPU infrastructure, which then helps reduce the price of actually having those applications up and running for customers.
Awesome. Well, definitely sounds like you're ahead of the curve, thinking ahead a lot in the process of, where are we going next as things evolve with cloud. So really cool, really exciting. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions here. So this next one is pretty practical. Ashwani's asking, if an organization is cloud infrastructure, let's say AWS, then does Akamai integrate with existing cloud infrastructure, or does it replace it?
That's a great question. So let me make sure make sure I repeat the question. That way we are all on the same page. If a customer today is already using AWS cloud infrastructure, does Akamai integrate with that infrastructure, or does it replace that infrastructure? Is that the question?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Let's make sure we separate what infrastructure and applications are. Two separate things. So the infrastructure itself, it's your could be your compute, storage, database, and then you have higher services on top of that, which could be Lambda, managed services, and so forth. That's infrastructure. Okay, some could be managed infrastructure, some could be just fundamental infrastructure, and then you have an application that sits on that. That could be anything, high frequency trading or mobile app, whatever. Today, infrastructure-wise, we do integrate at some point. For example, we can have a private network from our data center go into a customer environment, which is sitting on AWS. We're doing that today, and that's fine. So you can have like a private NIC at the infrastructure layer. But if you're saying infrastructure in the sense of, does a instance in AWS integrate directly with a VM, which we call Linode, in Akamai? No, we don't have that kind of an integration at the infrastructure level. If you flip that to at the application level, that's a whole different story, because now that is software based. So you can run Guardicore, for example, on Akamai, and it integrates just fine. You can run it on AWS at the software level, and they both talk to each other just fine. So do we have a native integration between Akamai and AWS platform? No, we don't. But if you want to pipe traffic through a private NIC from Akamai to AWS, yeah, we do support that. That's fine. Customers have done that today. And I hope that helps, explains it.
No, I think so. And actually, I think that was a really great way to phrase it, is like the infrastructure is not the same as the applications that are running on that infrastructure. And so definitely looks like there's a lot of integrations possible, but smart to kind of clarify what is what in terms of software versus the base infrastructure or hosting infrastructure.
Correct. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you. Okay, last question, and then we're going to wrap things up here. This one's a bit future forward, so not sure what you'll have to say, but this one is from Allison. She's asking, can you discuss the impact of quantum computing on cloud security, and are there any preparatory steps that organizations should take? This may be too far out.
Yes, I don't have enough knowledge in quantum computing to give you an answer that is backed with data and experience. All I can tell you is a lot of the quantum computing phase are in the experimental stage at this point. That was the same thing we said about AI 3-5 years ago, but look at where we are with ChatGPT and the rest of it. So I don't have enough to share. I'm not going to BS, but I'll tell you is they are possible. What's the word I'm looking for here? The future looks bright for quantum computing in enterprises and information technology. What that looks like and how that will be used, I don't know.
All right, that's fair. It's good to go that way. I wasn't sure if you'd have something up your sleeve, but I figured it'd be interesting. So that is all the time we've got for today. But I would like to always ask, where should people go? What should they do if they are excited about Akamai and they want to get started, or they want to learn a bit more? What's the best first step?
Right. Best first step, there's a link in the deck. I believe the deck will be shared with everyone. Always go first. Go through the link. For those of you that are more developer focused, we do have YouTube channels for our developer focused channels. You can always go in there and you can get not just the inside scoop of how you can deploy and run specific software application on the platform, but you can also get advice on best practices on how to actually protect them security wise on the platform. So those are two resources I'll put out there.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time and sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Take good care. Alrighty. So if you haven't already answered the poll, it is up there, just asking what additional information you would like about the Akamai solution. I know we've got a lot of input there, but it is going to come down in a second. So last chance to kind of request exactly what you're looking for. Think of this as your wish list, and the Akamai team will follow up with any and all information and resources that you'd like, as well as if you did ask a question and we didn't have enough time to get to it today, do not fret. The Akamai team will also have some time after to answer those questions or reach out after the EcoCast today. Additionally, we do have the handouts tab there nestled in with the questions window. So there's a PDF there that Akamai has a document linked in. This is a document called Distributed Cloud Technologies Next Act, and that's broken into kind of 5 main sections. There's some surveying and some studies that have gone into this document. So really great, really thorough, definitely something you're going to want to take a look at. And I'd encourage you to grab that now because you don't want to forget and at the end say, I was going to get it and I forgot. So pick that up, grab it now, save it for later, and then you will definitely enjoy that when you have the time to read through it. All right, and with that, we have our first prize to give away. This is the first of three $300 gift cards. Again, you do need to be live and present at the webinar to win. And the first one here is going out to Eric Skiff from Virginia. Eric, huge congrats, and we'll be reaching out after today's EcoCast to let you know how you can claim your prize. And with that, let's keep things zipping along. Next up on today's roster on the EcoCast is the team from Rubrik. And I'm sure some of you will recognize this presenter, definitely recognize Rubrik, as we have them in-house pretty often. Great team. I'd like to introduce you to the brilliant James Purvis. He is the director of Rubrik X Security Sales and GTM. James, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say on this topic. So I'm going to kick things over to you and let you wrap up this short and sweet EcoCast. Alrighty, James, the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is James Purvis, and I head up Rubrik X Security Sales. And today we're going to discuss how you can become completely cyber resilient. First, it's important to understand what Rubrik is set out to accomplish. We are on a mission to secure the world's data. And as we talk about data security today, I want you to think about and envision this attack timeline. You have pre-attack and you have post-attack, or as I like to call it, peacetime versus wartime. So think of this as we go along. So like when an attack happens, we're on the clock. You're on the clock to determine what the level of risk is to the organization. The risk impact depends heavily on the importance of the data involved. And since you're on the clock, the speed of understanding the scope of the attack and responding relies heavily on the data intelligence that you can glean from your existing security tools. You have your endpoint protection, but how do you know what was encrypted if EDR was bypassed? After all, the majority of attacks are at the VM level. If the attacker has an encrypted backdoor, how would you know what data was exfiltrated? You would have to presume that everything on the network was vulnerable. And if production is down, none of these security tools that need to scan prod will do much for you. Now, I'm not saying to get rid of all these tools, but in the event of an attack, this is all you got. Meanwhile, the costs are racking up. In talking to Aon, one of the biggest cyber insurers out there, they told me the most expensive piece of the IR process is understanding if sensitive data was in scope. Despite this, it continues to be one of the biggest blind spots for CISOs. Just look at the case of Change Healthcare. That attack was 20 plus weeks ago as I record this, and they still don't know what data was exposed in that attack. The costs of that breach recently surpassed $2 billion. So how does Rubrik approach this? Well, first, it's important to understand that Rubrik has a time series of data of the data derived from an immutable offline copy of your data. This delivers data observability by understanding content, users, and an application lineage over time without the need of agents or the need for production to be up and running. And when we find a threat, we'll help you identify when it occurred, where it's located, and what data was impacted. And then by monitoring data at its source, you can detect attackers that have bypassed perimeter defenses using compromised credentials. And because we layer on encryption detection and sensitive data discovery by scanning this offline data, you can scope the attack even if your security tools are down or if they've been compromised. And as you know, the learning curve of a ransomware attack is really off the charts. That's why we've introduced Ruby. This is a Gen AI companion to help you accelerate cyber detection, recovery, and resilience for all levels of cyber expertise. And if you want to talk to a human, no problem. You can leverage our dedicated ransomware response team to help you the entire way. This is a 24/7, 365-day-a-year service that we provide all of our customers at no extra cost. These folks have done hundreds of recoveries to date. They have the knowledge, they have the bridge, they are the bridge in between your data protection, security, and your incident response teams. These three teams, they need to work together to investigate the attack, reduce recovery time, and then limit the material impact. But what if you could prevent data exfiltration from happening in the first place? So this leads me to peacetime. During peacetime, security leaders like yourself, they're doing everything possible to prevent the inevitable attack with their investments in perimeter, network, endpoint, and application security. But when it comes to data, it's the largest and fastest growing attack surface out there. Every business is using data to collect insights, create new products and services, and they have to do this without putting the company at risk. Unfortunately, when data proliferates, the security controls do not travel with it. And your IT security staff sure as heck hasn't grown at the same rate either. And look, we're all hoarders of data. If this was your house, you wouldn't even go in it. The explosion of AI is going to make this even more challenging. In fact, none of the CISOs that I talk to know where their data resides, know where all their data resides, what the materiality of it is, or who has access to all of it. That's because there are thousands of data stores and in hundreds of services that are all intermingled. The result is unmonitored and unprotected data that is exposed, and this is what the cyber attackers are after. Think of this as like bank robbers. They don't rob the bank to steal pens. So let's imagine your OneDrive was compromised by ransomware. Would you even know what data was even in the OneDrive? Would this trigger a compliance issue for you? And as data democratization happens, it is very common for sensitive, proprietary, and then highly regulated data to get copied, modified, and shared and moved all around with really out any oversight by securities teams. So it only takes really a few seconds for a developer or a data scientist to accidentally make a file publicly accessible in cloud storage, such as AWS S3, or copy a database to a test environment without proper protection, and then forget to delete it afterwards. So the bottom line is you can't secure what you can't see. So this leads me to how we approach this. The first step in protecting your data is to have complete visibility into your entire environment. Every managed and unmanaged data store, every compute instance, on-prem, cloud, and SaaS. We can do this for you autonomously without any agents, no matter where your data sits. And then we scan your data without impacting your production or having data ever leave your environment. So it's very safe and it's very fast. We then automatically classify based on the context and the sensitivity, so you don't have to make lawyers go do it and get into that continuously updated model that everybody hates. From here, you'll have a heat map of where you're most at risk in your environment and allow you to reduce that risk proactively. We look at multiple pieces of information, such as user access, user activity, and configurations around the access. All of this is driven by a centralized data context. Data is always the source of truth for us here at Rubrik. And if you're looking for immediate ways to save money and potentially self-fund this solution, you definitely can. Like I said, we're hoarders of data. So you can show all of your redundant and stale cloud data, which you can completely eliminate and reduce costs in real time. In fact, we recently did a pilot with a customer and we helped them identify 1.6 petabytes of cloud data that didn't even matter to them. The CISO told me it would have taken him 10 FTEs to go and figure all this out. They destroyed the data and then used the cloud storage cost savings to move from a piloted project to becoming a full-blown customer. All of these capabilities will help you reduce the attack surface, save money, and minimize the material impact of a breach. So to wrap this up, by proactively reducing the risk of data exposure and exfiltration in peacetime, your wartime scenario just became a heck of a lot easier. The result is an accelerated incident response, massive cost avoidance, and the confidence that no matter what, you can bounce back fast and keep the business running. This is true cyber resilience.
James, that was fantastic. I love the line, "We are all hoarders of data. If it were our own house, we wouldn't even go in it." But it is true. I think, we've obsessed over collecting and cataloging and keeping the data that sometimes we literally have no clue what we've even put in there. So using tech to both secure that and make sure we know what is where, and that we can access and restore what we need, super important. And I love that analogy. So thank you. James is taken off. It's a little bit of a short and sweet day. I think he's got a hectic schedule and has to head off to something else. So we're not going to be doing a live Q&A with James. But any questions you've added in there, the Rubrik team will definitely follow up. And we also have the poll up. So if you're looking for any specific items, any follow-up information, data sheets, white papers, case studies, pricing details, just plunk in your response there, and we'll make sure that that gets handed over to you after today's EcoCast wraps up. Now, if you do want to learn more right away, you can also go to that handouts tab and download their ebook and PDF. This is actually really well designed, looks great. It is Measuring Your Data's Risks. So again, really nicely laid out document. It's a little bit longer, like proper read, but definitely I think I'd suggest it so that you can get a really good assessment internally and some ideas about how your data is looking. How are you actually set up? And if you do need to make some adjustments or some plans based on that assessment. So there we have it, folks. So again, huge thanks to both Akamai and Rubrik for being here on today's EcoCast. I do have a couple more prizes to give away as we wrap things up on this fantabulous Friday. And so again, reminder, you do need to be live and present to win one of these prizes. And with that, a little drum roll on your desk or wherever you are camped out watching this webinar today. Next two winners for the $300 Amazon gift cards are Brandon Vickers from Texas and Trevor Cole from Michigan. And again, a huge congrats to all three winners. Just to recap, the first one went out to Eric Skiff from Virginia. The second, Brandon Vickers from Texas. The third, Trevor Cole from Michigan. As always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after the webinar, plus those two best question gift cards that are going to be drawn and sent out. We will also be in touch about that. Alrighty, if you did have a fantastic time today and you would like to chat with us about presenting on a future summit, EcoCast, or MegaCast webinar, we would love to hear from you. Reach out via email at connect@actualtechmedia.com and we can open the conversation. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, one final thank you to all of our speakers from Akamai and Rubrik for making this EcoCast possible and for being here with us today. And also a special thank you to all of you for attending and asking some great questions. I had so much fun with you all talking about the cloud-powered enterprise and securing your cloud. I hope you've all gotten some interesting tips, some ideas, and maybe you're leaving feeling excited, lit up, and ready to take some next steps. Now, again, if you did enjoy your time on today's EcoCast, I urge you to check out an upcoming EcoCast on practical AI, understanding the technology foundations necessary to unleash the AI revolution. We actually have a 4-part series on AI coming up. So if this is something you want to learn more about, get in tune with, definitely want to check out this. This is the first one in the series. And we've got a couple awesome teams presenting there. That is Tuesday next week, August 6th. 12 p.m. Eastern or 9 a.m. Pacific. And with that, I hope to see you all again soon. And I am wishing you an absolutely magical rest of your day and a fantastic weekend. Take care, everybody.